All right, so I'm going to start off on a story about Stacy and Kyle. Stacy and Kyle are in their mid-30s. They have been married for the last 10 years. They have 4 children under the age of 7. Kyle works full-time away from the home while Stacy's home with the children. On the outside, you would see a couple that is very happy. All of their needs are met. But as soon as you walk through the doors, you see something completely different. Kyle and Stacy do not remember the last time that they were happy together or individually. They do not remember the last time they were intimate and actually enjoyed it. Through the highs and the lows of life, through bills, jobs, school, and children, they find themselves drifting apart from one another. They let this go on for a time period until it gets to the point that they feel like they are living 2 completely different lives under the same roof. See, Kyle and Stacy got young because of the pressure from their religion. They also started having kids at a young age because of that same pressure. They thought they were doing what they wanted, when really they lost sight of what really matters and taking care of each other. Kyle one day came home with divorce papers, and Stacy was fine with it. She saw this as a relief and a solution to her unhappiness. Within this marriage, there was no infidelity. There was no abuse, just a couple who stopped taking care of one another, who had drifted apart. They chose divorce as an option and felt it may be the solution. Couples give up too quickly on marriages today because they think divorce is the solution. And you may look at me and ask if I've ever been married or if I know exactly how hard it is. And I will say no to both questions. But I am a child that came from a family where verbal abuse was constant. I saw firsthand my parents always fighting, and a marriage that was always on the verge and on the rocks. However, my parents never used the word divorce in the home. My parents did not see divorce as an option. One day, they just decided that they were going to try harder, and they got through it. And now my parents are the happiest that I've ever seen them. But that took hard work, and it took them realizing that there was no out. So, when you think of Kyle and Stacy and all the other children in that same situation, under the situation where there is no abuse or infidelity within the home, then yes, any couple that gets divorced is in the wrong. They are thinking about themselves and not those around them or the kids they are affecting. 2 out of 5 children will experience or go through a divorce by the age of 18. What do you think that means for Kyle and Stacy's children? That means holidays now spent separate, bouncing back from home to home. The possibility of now having step-parents and step-siblings. Feelings of neglect, loneliness, and misunderstanding. A young child does not comprehend how their parents just fall out of love with each other or why all of a sudden they are not happy. A child's perception of divorce will largely be determined by their age and their gender, as well as a child's history of stress and coping. There is yet to be any evidence that proves that a child does not have some kind of negative effect or impact from their parents' divorce. But let's think of the root problem to divorces nowadays. A lot of it's caused by jumping into marriage. The honeymoon phase is over. Not having the same vision of her success or their goals now changing. Intimacy disappears. Unmet expectations. Finance and money issues. Unable to resolve conflict, and the list goes on. All of those things, though, however, are fixable. You can change all of them. I am fully aware that divorce does not just happen overnight, but over the course of a few years or even months. Usually, a series of events or behaviors are a part of one or both spouses airs the negative feelings towards one another. Sometimes it starts by a couple having an argument, a misunderstanding, or lack of communication. Maybe they find that being together, they just don't like it. They don't like being around each other 24/7 or have a hard time living with one another. Over a period of time, one or both marital partners becomes convinced that the relationship is intolerable or at least not working. But there is something in their mind at some point that enters that divorce is a solution. Maybe it's because they grew up in a home where their parents were divorced. They came from a broken home and they feel as though they are okay and that there are really no huge side effects, that they will be fine and their kids will be fine. Maybe it's because, in society, their friends are not getting divorced just once but up to 3 times, and it's now a social norm. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Or maybe they had the pressure of getting married at a young age, and they fought through their marriage, they held it together, but now they're at their breaking point. They can't force themselves anymore, and they want out. Or maybe it's something as simple as they woke up unhappy, and they want out. Regardless of the situation, at some point divorce entered their mind as a solution. And that's the root of the problem. 1 million divorces happen in the United States today. More than half of those happen just because they wanted out. To restate my thought, that couples give up too easily on marriages due to thinking divorce is the solution. When a couple goes to get married, no one ever promises it's going to be easy. Nobody tells them that children are going to make it easier, that you won't need communication to get through it, that you won't fight with your spouse, or that you'll want to be around them 24/7. Nobody says any of that. If you look back to the traditional wedding vows, which many people agree to today, it says to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for rich or for poor, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. You're agreeing that for better or for worse, you'll stay together. Through sickness and in health, whether you're rich or you're poor, couples need to acknowledge that they're agreeing to this before getting married. They knew what they were getting themselves into, and they made a promise. So to go back to the root of the problem, if there is no infidelity issues, if there is no abuse, verbal or physical, within the home, then a couple that chooses to get divorced is in the wrong, and it's not a solution. A lot of people think it is a solution because life gets hard, their marriage gets hard, kids, if they have them, make it harder, and some people believe that the only way through it is to get out of it. Instead of working with their partner in whatever area is lacking in their marriage, instead of trying to communicate or trying to recreate the intimacy within their marriage, they let it build up to a point that neither one of them has the effort or energy to make it work. I believe that the reason for more than half of the divorces today in the United States is simply because divorce has come into our minds as an option, or even worse, a solution, and that's wrong. Divorce is not a solution, and even worse, it is not an option.